Under Plum Lake by Lionel Davidson, Part 4, Dream Journeys. 27. The Planted Memories. I heard a kind of roaring sound. I'd heard every kind of sound in the last few days, of wind and gale. I turned on my side and looked toward the cave mouth. I was on a stone shelf at the back of the cave, chilled to the bone and aching all over. It was lighter outside, so I knew I'd slept a bit. It was a dirty gray light. Another day had come. I tried to remember how many I'd been here. Was it 3 days or 4? It was dark on the shelf, and I felt for a flashlight. Then I remembered I'd tried it before and the battery had given out. It had given out long ago. I swept my legs off the shelf and felt my head swim again. I was weak as a kitten. It wasn't so much hunger. That was just an ache now. The dizziness was worse. I felt dizzy every time I moved. My feet touched ground and I stood and leaned against the shelf, waiting for everything to stop spinning. I wondered what I was going to do. I couldn't jump up to the step on the cliff. I didn't have the strength, apart from climbing the cliff itself. I'd had an idea I might wait for the storm to die and take my clothes off and swim back. With the tide running, I'd float most of the way. Now I didn't have the strength for that either. It was a crazy thing I'd done. I remembered coming down the cliff in the moonlight. I remembered jumping off the last step and exploring the inside of the cave and suddenly realizing that the sea outside was becoming rough. I'd hesitated too long. Waves had begun slapping the step. They'd slapped everywhere. They'd started washing into the cave. The whole floor of the cave had become a pool. And I'd gone to the back and found the shelf there. My clothes felt damp now. They'd been damp for days. I'd known right away I was in trouble. After the first day, I knew it was serious trouble. I thought I'd have to wait for the sea to stop pounding the step and creep back and take what was coming to me. But it had got worse. The sea hadn't stopped pounding. It had gone on and on. My legs were so rubbery I didn't think I'd make it to the cave mouth. I thought I'd try it on hands and knees, but there were still pools of water everywhere. I started lurching through the water. My head thudded at every moment, and even the murky light outside hurt my eyes. But I could see it was different out there now. There wasn't the angry white flash of the sea. There wasn't the grinding sound of it pouring back off the cliff. I went up the 2 steps to the platform and stood there a moment swaying. I didn't dare go right to the edge. I thought I'd fall in. I just hung on the side of the cave and lowered myself into an inch of cold water. I was so exhausted, I couldn't even bother getting out of it. I just sat there in the pool of water and looked at the sea. It was the color of lead now, with a sullen, heavy swell. There was no white foam anymore. I couldn't make it out. I couldn't make out if it was coming or going. I couldn't make out the roaring sound either. It wasn't the wind. It was hoarser and sharper. It must be the birds. I'd heard them too during the storm. Some of them had fluttered into the cave before realizing I was there, and then had fluttered out again, frightened. It was like bird noise, but different. The birds were calling in English. With my head going round and round, I realized the birds were people. I tried to get up, but couldn't. I just rolled forward on my hands and knees. I must have looked like a dog there, a half-starved dog peering out of the cave. They saw me right away, and I saw them. I saw the boat with the 3 figures in oilskins. I saw one of them had a police uniform underneath, and another was using a long pole to keep the boat away from the cliff. I looked hard at the other. I looked so hard my eyes swam, and his head became 2 and then 1 again. But both ways, he was my father. I remember the boat chugging slowly back to the cove, and them carrying me across the beach and up the rocky path. I remember a crooked ceiling and knowing I was in my own room again. Then a floating feeling and I was in bed. I heard Annie squeaking. She was squeaking, "Why has he got his watch on? Did he go swimming in it? Why has he got his clothes on? Did he go swimming in them?" I wish she'd stop squeaking. The room was full of people. One of them had a stethoscope round his neck, and was sitting on my bed, feeling my pulse. Later, my mother was there alone, and she was giving me spoonfuls of soup. The soup was too hot, and it was going down my chin. She said I had to drink something from a glass. It was bitter, and I couldn't get it down. But I tried a few times, and I did get it down. I must have slept. I had a dream. I had the weirdest dream. I was flying in a purple night, and that's the end of the 27th section.